Millionaire shocked to learn that poor Nanny donated her own blood to save his daughter. But what followed, no one could have predicted. The once invisible worker wins the girl's heart and awakens the silent fury of the wife. Cast out of the house, she vanishes until the father, consumed by guilt, begs for her return. When he proposes adopting her as his daughter, the scandal shatters the walls of the elite and becomes a symbol of change. The sun had barely risen when Paloma Rivers was already walking through the streets of Crestwood. The dew still glistened on the leaves of the trees that lined the path between the small Eastern Heights housing complex, where she lived, and the luxurious Athena estates in the affluent part of the city. Her steps were hurried, as she couldn't afford to be late. At 25, she single-handedly supported her younger sister, Deborah, 19, who dreamed of studying medicine at Crestwood State University. The contrast was stark when Paloma crossed the bridge over the Haw River, leaving the simplicity of her neighborhood behind and entering the tree-lined streets where imposing mansions hid behind high walls. She had been working for almost 2 years at the residence of the Ashford family, one of the most influential in the region, owners of textile mills that employed half the city. "Good morning, Paloma." The doorman, Jim, greeted her with respect. Even though she was just the cleaning lady, Paloma had won the affection of all the staff with her quiet dignity and discreet smile. "Good morning, Jim. How's your granddaughter?" she asked, pausing briefly. "Getting better, thank God. The medicine you suggested worked." The man smiled, grateful. Paloma just nodded, continuing her way down the long avenue of royal palms that led to the back entrance of the mansion. Her deep brown eyes reflected the fatigue of someone who woke up at 5 every morning, but they carried a serenity that was impressive. Her simple uniform, a light blue dress with a white apron, did not diminish her natural elegance. In the kitchen, she found Brenda, the cook, who was already preparing breakfast. "Girl, you won't believe what happened last night," whispered the gray-haired woman, leaning in as if sharing a secret. Little Sophia had another crisis. Ambulance, doctor, the whole rush. Paloma felt her heart tighten. Sophia, the employer's 8-year-old daughter, suffered from a rare blood disease that doctors were still trying to fully understand. She was a sweet girl, with curious eyes and a shy smile, who often watched Paloma work from a distance, like a frightened little bird. "Is she better?" she asked, already taking her cleaning supplies from the cupboard. "She's in her room, very weak. The doctors say she needs an urgent transfusion, but her blood is extremely rare. Dr. Evans is desperately searching for compatible donors." Brenda sighed, making the sign of the cross. "That girl is an angel. She doesn't deserve to go through this." Paloma began her work in the main living room, where the antique furniture and works of art required special care. As she gently wiped a rosewood table, she heard raised voices coming from the study. The slightly ajar door allowed fragments of the conversation to reach her. "Evans, you have to find this donor. Money is no object." The deep voice of Richard Ashford, the owner of the house, echoed off the walls. Tall, with an imposing presence, and always impeccably dressed, he was known for his strong temper and unwavering determination. "Richard, we're doing everything we can. Sophia's blood type is extremely rare, occurring in less than 0.1% of the population. We need someone with the Rh null type, the so-called golden blood." The doctor's voice sounded tired. "What about those international blood banks? Have you checked?" The female voice, more controlled but equally tense, belonged to Helena Ashford. With her always flawless attire and discreet jewelry, She was the epitome of Crestwood's high society elegance. Her face, even at 40, maintained a classic beauty that fueled envy and admiration at the charity events she organized. Helena, even the international banks, have very few units of this blood type. We're on the waiting list, but it could take weeks. And Sophia needs the transfusion in 5 days at the most. Paloma moved away discreetly, trying not to overhear what was not her business, but her heart was heavy. She knew that feeling of helplessness in the face of a loved one's illness all too well. Her own mother had passed away 5 years earlier from a heart condition they couldn't treat properly due to a lack of funds. The rest of the morning passed in tense silence. The house, normally bustling with the presence of staff, seemed shrouded in a heavy atmosphere. Around noon, while Paloma was cleaning the hallway leading to the bedrooms, she noticed Sophia's door was ajar. For a moment her eyes met the girl's, who was watching her with curiosity. "Hi," Sophia said, her voice weak. She was lying in her large bed, surrounded by teddy bears and children's books. The paleness of her little face contrasted with her red hair, an inheritance from her Irish great-grandmother. "Hi, Sophia. How are you feeling today?" Paloma smiled, maintaining the distance the house protocol required. "Tired. Can you tell me a story?" The girl's eyes shone with hope. Paloma hesitated. The rules were clear. The cleaning lady was not to interact with the residents beyond what was strictly necessary. But the simple request from the sick child was hard to refuse. "Just a quick one, then," she conceded, cautiously entering the room. She sat on the edge of the bed and began to tell the story of the girl who talked to the birds, a tale her own mother used to tell her in childhood. Sophia listened intently, her eyes coming alive with every word. When Paloma finished, the girl held her hand with surprising strength. "Will you come back tomorrow to tell me more?" "If you want me to, I will," Paloma promised, touched by the simplicity of the request. At that moment, Helena Ashford appeared at the door, her cold gaze assessing the scene. Paloma stood up quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Sophia asked for a story and I—" "It's all right," Helena interrupted, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But I think Sophia needs to rest now. And you have other tasks to attend to, don't you?" Paloma nodded, quickly leaving the room. Helena's gaze followed her, calculating something Paloma couldn't decipher. In the afternoon, while organizing her cleaning supplies in the small storage closet, Paloma heard her name mentioned in the hallway. It was Carmen, the housekeeper, speaking with Richard Ashford. "Yes, sir. Paloma has regular blood tests. It's a requirement for all employees because of the health plan you offer." "Excellent. Have them send me all her records, urgently." Paloma frowned, confused. Why would her employer want her medical records? A chill ran down her spine, fearing she might lose her job over some health issue she didn't even know she had. The rest of the day passed in a blur of worry. When she finally finished her shift, Paloma packed her things and prepared for the long walk home. At the gate, she was surprised by the presence of Richard Ashford, waiting for her by his imported car. "Paloma, can we talk for a minute?" His voice, usually authoritative, sounded strangely vulnerable. "Of course, sir," she replied, apprehensive. The man looked from side to side, as if searching for the right words. For the first time, Paloma saw in him not the powerful businessman, but just a desperate father. "I just received your test results. Did you know you have an extremely rare blood type?" Paloma's eyes widened, surprised by her employer's question. "A rare type?" "No, sir. I only know that I am a universal donor." She nervously adjusted the strap of her worn-out bag on her shoulder. "Paloma, according to your tests, You have the Rh0 type. It's known as golden blood. So rare that fewer than 50 people in the entire world have it. Richard paused, his eyes fixed on hers. It's exactly the blood type Sophia needs. The world seemed to spin around Paloma. For a moment she remembered the conversations she had overheard that morning. The desperation in the parents' voices, the paleness of Sophia's little face. "You want me to donate blood for Sophia?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Would it be too much to ask?" Richard's voice trembled slightly. "I know it goes far beyond your duties as an employee, but my daughter, she doesn't have much time." Paloma didn't hesitate. "You don't even have to ask, sir. When can we do it?" The relief on Richard's face was palpable. Without thinking, he took Paloma's hands in his, a gesture he would never have made under normal circumstances. "Tomorrow morning. I'll send a driver to pick you up at 6. Dr. Evans will be waiting at the clinic." He let go of her hands, seeming suddenly aware of the breach of protocol. "This will stay between us, Paloma. I don't want anyone to know, not even Helena. She has very rigid ideas about certain things." Paloma nodded, understanding the unspoken. She knew very well how her employer viewed the distance that should exist between them and us. "Can I trust your discretion?" Richard asked, already regaining his usual posture. "Of course, sir. Don't worry." That night, lying in her simple bed in the small apartment she shared with her sister, Paloma couldn't sleep. The room was cramped, with peeling walls and a single window that looked out onto a brick wall. So different from the spacious rooms of the Ashford mansion, with their silk curtains and views of immaculate gardens. "What's wrong, Paloma? Are you worried about something?" Deborah appeared at the bedroom door, holding a biology textbook. She studied tirelessly for her college entrance exams, determined to achieve her dream. "It's nothing, just thinking about life." Paloma smiled, not wanting to worry her sister. "How are your studies going?" "I'm almost done with the chapter on blood groups. Did you know there are types so rare they only appear in one person in a million?" Deborah sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes shining with the enthusiasm of someone who loves what they study. Paloma felt a shiver. It was as if the universe was sending signs, connecting invisible dots. "I think I've heard of it," she replied vaguely. The next morning, promptly at 6, a discreet black car parked in front of her building. The driver, a middle-aged man with a sober expression, asked no questions. He drove Paloma to a private clinic in downtown Crestwood, where she was received by Dr. Evans himself. "Miss Rivers, I have no words to thank you," the doctor, a man of about 50 with graying temples, shook her hand sincerely. "What you're doing will save Sophia's life. Anyone would do the same, doctor," she replied, embarrassed by the attention. "Believe me, not everyone would." He sighed, guiding her to a private room. "We ran the compatibility test with your blood last night. It's a perfect match for Sophia." The donation procedure was quick and painless. As she watched her blood flow through the clear tube, Paloma thought of little Sophia, and how something so simple could make the difference between life and death. When she was done, the doctor insisted she rest for half an hour and have something to eat before leaving. "Mr. Ashford asked me to give you this," Dr. Evans said, handing her an envelope. Inside was an amount of cash, equivalent to 3 months of her salary, and a simple note, "Thank you." Paloma felt her face flush. She hadn't done it for money. She was about to return the envelope when the doctor stopped her. "I know what you're thinking, but please accept it. It's his way of expressing gratitude. Refusing would be offensive." Reluctantly, she put the envelope in her bag. 3 days later, upon arriving for work, Paloma noticed a different atmosphere in the mansion. Brenda greeted her with a tight hug, her eyes misty. "It's a miracle, girl. Sophia is responding to the treatment like never before. The doctors are amazed." Paloma smiled, feeling a wave of relief. "That's wonderful news, Brenda. The doctor said the blood she received was perfect, as if it were made especially for her." The cook made the sign of the cross again. "God puts angels in our path when we need them most." Throughout the morning, Paloma worked with a lighter heart. Around 10 o'clock, while cleaning the windows in the library, she heard a childish voice behind her. "Paloma." Turning round, she saw Sophia standing in the doorway. She was still pale, but her eyes had a new sparkle. She was wearing silk pajamas with little butterflies printed on them, and clutched a colorful book to her chest. "Sophia, what are you doing out of bed?" Paloma dropped her cloth, concerned. "Dad said I can stay in the library for a little while today. Will you tell me another story?" The girl smiled, revealing a missing front tooth. "I don't know if your mother would approve, ... glancing nervously at the door. Paloma hesitated, glancing nervously at the drawer. "Mom went to the Rotary Club and won't be back until after lunch." Sophia came closer, taking Paloma's hand. "Please. The story of the girl and the birds helped me get better, I'm sure of it." Unable to resist, Paloma sat with Sophia in one of the comfortable library armchairs. The girl snuggled up beside her as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "What's that book?" Paloma asked, pointing to the colorful volume. "It's about a princess who saves the kingdom with a drop of magic blood." Sophia opened the book, showing the illustrations, "Just like you did for me." Paloma froze. "What do you mean?" "I know it was you who gave me the blood." Sophia looked at her with that disconcerting wisdom children sometimes possess. "I heard Daddy talking to Dr. Evans on the phone. He said you're my guardian angel." Not knowing how to respond, Paloma just smiled. "Shall we read the story then?" For the next hour, they read together, laughed, and talked like old friends. Sophia told her about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian and caring for stray animals. Paloma talked about her sister, who wanted to be a doctor. Time flew by, and they only realized they had overstayed when they heard footsteps in the hall. Richard Ashford appeared at the door, his serious expression softening as he saw his daughter laughing. "Daddy!" Sophia exclaimed, excited. "Paloma is telling me about her sister who's going to be a doctor, just like Dr. Evans. Is that so?" Richard looked at Paloma with genuine curiosity. It was the first time he had seen her as a person, not just as an employee. "My sister is studying hard for the medical college entrance exams," Paloma explained, embarrassed, quickly getting up from the armchair. "Don't stop on my account," Richard said, surprising her. "I haven't seen Sophia this lively in a long time." He approached, stroking his daughter's hair affectionately. "How are you feeling, princess?" "Much better, Daddy. I think Paloma's blood is magic." Richard and Paloma exchanged a look. There was something new there, a silent understanding, a bond formed through the blood of one and the life of the other. "Why don't we invite Paloma to have lunch with us today?" Sophia suggested innocently. Before Richard could answer, a cold voice interrupted from the doorway. "What is going on here?" Helena Ashford stood in the doorway, still wearing her elegant Rotary Club suit, her gaze shifting between her daughter, sitting comfortably with a book, and the cleaning lady, who looked like she'd been caught in the act. "Sophia wanted some company while she read," Richard explained, standing up. "And Paloma kindly helped her, I see." Helena's tone made it clear she did not approve of the situation. "Sophia dear, it's time for your medicine. And I believe Paloma has other tasks to attend to, doesn't she?" It wasn't a question. It was an order. Paloma nodded, murmuring an excuse, and quickly left the library. As she passed Helena, she felt the woman's gaze piercing her back like daggers of ice. In the days that followed, something changed in the Ashford mansion. Sophia now sought out Paloma whenever she could, sneaking out of her quarters to accompany her on her chores, asking for stories, or simply chatting. Paloma tried to keep her distance, aware of Helena's displeasure, but it was impossible to resist the girl's sweetness. Richard, for his part, had also changed his attitude. He would greet Paloma in the hallways, ask about her sister, and once even asked for her opinion on a children's book he wanted to give Sophia. One afternoon, while Paloma was tidying the guest room, Sophia ran in, holding a drawing. "Look what I made for you," the girl exclaimed, holding out the paper. It was a simple drawing, made with colored markers, 2 figures holding hands, a small one with red hair, a taller one with black hair. Above, written in childish letters, "Sophia and Paloma, friends forever." "It's beautiful, Sophia." Paloma felt her eyes moisten. "Can I call you Auntie? I've always wanted an aunt." The girl looked at her expectantly. "You can," Paloma replied, knowing she was crossing a dangerous line, but unable to deny that sincere request. At that moment, without them noticing, Helena was watching the scene from the ajar door, her face a mask of growing displeasure. The next morning, Paloma arrived at the Ashford mansion and immediately sensed that something was wrong. Carmen, the housekeeper, greeted her with a worried expression. "What happened, Carmen?" Paloma asked, placing her bag in the small staff locker. "Mrs. Ashford has been restless since yesterday," the housekeeper replied, lowering her voice. "She had a heated conversation with Mr. Ashford after dinner. The walls have ears in this house, but from what I could gather, it was about you and little Sophia." Paloma felt her stomach sink. She had feared this would happen eventually, but she hadn't expected it to be so soon. "She asked you to start with the pool area today," Carmen continued, "and she said she wants to speak with you after lunch. Be careful, girl. The missus isn't usually very understanding about certain things." With a heavy heart, Paloma headed to the mansion's outdoor area. The day was particularly hot for October, and the sun reflected mercilessly off the crystal-clear waters of the infinity pool, which seemed to merge with the city's skyline below. As she cleaned the garden furniture, she heard Sophia's excited voice. "Auntie Paloma, look what I got." The girl ran towards her, wearing a colorful swimsuit and carrying a new book. She looked healthier every day, her cheeks gaining color, her eyes more vibrant. "Sophia, shouldn't you be in your lessons?" Paloma asked, concerned. The girl had a private tutor who came every morning. Mr. Augustine cancelled today. "Dad said I can stay by the pool for a little while, as long as I don't get too tired." Sophia sat on one of the lounge chairs, opening her book. "Can you stay here with me? I'm working, Sophia, and I don't think your mother would like us talking. Please, just for a little bit. I'll read, and you can keep cleaning. I promise I won't bother you." The pleading look was impossible to resist. Resigned, Paloma continued her work, while Sophia read excerpts from her new book aloud. Sometimes the girl would stop to ask questions or make comments, and Paloma would respond briefly, always on the lookout for any sign of Helena's presence. Around noon, after Sophia had gone back inside for lunch, Richard appeared in the pool area. His usually confident face looked tired, with dark circles suggesting a sleepless night. "Good afternoon, Paloma," he greeted, sitting on one of the lounge chairs she had just cleaned. "Good afternoon, sir." Paloma stopped her work, unsure how to proceed. Richard looked at the horizon for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "Helena is worried about the closeness between you and Sophia. Paloma nodded, unsurprised. I understand, sir. I promise to keep my distance from now on. It's not that simple. Richard sighed, running a hand through the graying hair at his temples. Sophia has never had friends. Her illness has kept her isolated for most of her life. Now, for the first time, she's opening up, trusting someone. And that someone is you. He looked directly at Paloma. You saved her life twice. First with your blood, then with your friendship. Sir, let me finish, please. Helena has certain ideas about how things should be. She believes there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. To her, the bond between Sophia and you is ... inappropriate. Paloma felt her face burn with shame and indignation. I never had any bad intentions, sir. Sophia is a wonderful child. I just wanted to see her happy. I know that. Richard stood up, approaching her. And I am deeply grateful for everything you've done. But Helena is Sophia's mother, and I have to respect her concerns. She's asked that we ... reorganize your duties in the house. The way he avoided her eyes as he said this made it clear what was coming. Paloma felt a lump in her throat. I'm being fired, aren't I? Richard looked uncomfortable. Helena thinks it would be for the best. You'll receive 3 months' salary as severance, and of course I can provide excellent references. Paloma nodded silently. There was nothing to argue. The rules of the game had been clear from the beginning, and she had allowed herself to forget them. Can I at least say goodbye to Sophia? She asked, her voice trembling. I think it would be better not to, he replied, his discomfort evident. Helena will explain to her that you had to leave for personal reasons. It would be easier for everyone, or just for Helena. Paloma wanted to ask, but she swallowed the words. She needed those references, that 3 months' salary. When should I leave? She asked instead. No day, if possible. Carmen has already prepared your documents and final payment. Richard's tone was formal now, as if he were already returning to the role of the distant employer. I understand. I'll just get my things. In the small staff room, Paloma found an envelope with the promised money and a letter of recommendation signed by Richard. She put everything in her bag, trying not to think about the emptiness she felt. It wasn't just the job she was losing, but the bond with Sophia, a child who had found her way into her heart. As she was about to leave through the back, Carmen appeared, her eyes red. It's an injustice, girl. Everyone in this house knows it. The housekeeper hugged her tightly. Take care of yourself. And don't worry about little Sophia. I'll keep an eye on her for you. Paloma thanked her with a fragile smile and left. At the gate, Jim looked at her sadly. News travels fast, the doorman commented. We'll miss you around here, Paloma. Thank you, Jim. You take care too. As she crossed the bridge over the Haw River again, this time in the opposite direction, Paloma allowed herself to cry. For the first time, she realized how insurmountable the chasm was that separated her world from the world of the Ashfords. The following weeks were difficult. Despite the severance pay, Paloma needed to find a new job quickly. Deborah was in the final stretch of preparing for her college entrance exams and needed expensive study materials. Why don't you use some of the money to take a technical course? Deborah suggested one night, as they ate a simple meal of rice and beans. You've always wanted to study. Now's not the time, Paloma replied. I need to make sure you get into college first. I'll think about myself later. Deborah looked at her sister with a mix of admiration and sadness. You always put others first, Paloma. Sometimes I wonder when it will be your turn to be happy. At the Ashwood mansion, Paloma's absence had an immediate and devastating effect on Sophia. The girl, who had been improving daily, began to refuse food and isolate herself again. Helena tried to explain that Paloma had to leave to take care of family problems, but Sophia, with the keen intuition of children, sensed there was more to the story. She didn't even say goodbye, the girl would repeat, looking out her bedroom window, hoping to see Paloma arrive for another day of work. Auntie Paloma would never leave without saying goodbye. Richard watched his daughters suffering, helpless. At night in the master bedroom, arguments with Helena became frequent. "She's depressed, Helena. Dr. Evans is worried about her mental health. Her blood pressure has dropped again. She barely eats." "It's just a phase," Helena would reply, methodically fluffing the pillows. "Sophia needs to learn that life isn't always how we want it. She'll get over it, and what if she doesn't? Have you thought about that? What if her health gets worse because of this emotional distress? Or because you can't accept that a maid became important to her?" Helena turned, her eyes flashing. "It's not about that, and you know it. It's about boundaries, Richard. What kind of example would we be setting by allowing Sophia to become so attached to an employee? She needs to socialize with children from our circle, not with ... with people like Paloma." Richard finished bitterly. "People like Paloma saved our daughter's life, Helena. Her blood runs in Sophia's veins now. What does that make us?" Helena turned pale. "What are you saying?" Richard realized he had said too much. Helena didn't know about the blood donation, a secret he had kept at Dr. Evans's request, who feared the mother's prejudiced reaction. "Nothing. Forget it." He turned away, preparing for another night of restless sleep. Meanwhile, in the small apartment in Eastern Heights, Paloma dreamed of Sophia. In the dream, the girl was pale again, calling out for her. She woke with a start, feeling of tightness in her chest she couldn't explain. The next morning, Paloma was surprised by an unexpected visitor. Oswald, the Ashwoods' former butler, was standing at her apartment door, his expression grim. "Miss Rivers, I need to speak with you," he said without preamble. "It's about little Sophia." Paloma felt her heart race. What happened to her? She's not well at all. She's stopped eating, barely leaves her room. The doctors are worried. Oswald lowered his voice. "Mrs. Ashford doesn't know I'm here, but Mr. Ashford is desperate. He wants you to come back." "Come back?" "But Mrs. Ashford ... He will convince her. He said he'll do anything for his daughter, even if it means confronting his wife." Oswald looked around, uncomfortable in the simple surroundings. "There's a car waiting downstairs, if you'd like to come with me now." Paloma hesitated. A part of her wanted to run to see Sophia, to make sure the girl would be okay. Another part feared reliving the humiliation of her dismissal, facing Helena's icy gaze again. "Tell Mr. Ashford I need to think," she finally replied. "I can't just come back as if nothing happened." Oswald nodded, understanding. "He said you would say that. He asked me to give you this." He held out an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Richard, begging her to come back, if only to visit Sophia once. Along with it was a check for an amount sufficient to pay for a full year of Deborah's college tuition. Paloma sat down, stunned. The money would solve so many problems, give Deborah the chance she so deserved. But at what cost? "Tell Mr. Ashford I can't accept the money," she said, handing the check back to Oswald. "As for visiting Sophia, I'll think about it. But if I do come back, it will be on one condition." "What is it?" Oswald asked, curious. "To be treated with dignity. By everyone." Paloma looked firmly at the butler. "I am not an object to be discarded and then retrieved when convenient." Oswald smiled slightly. "I will tell him your exact words, Miss Rivers," after the butler left. Paloma spent long minutes looking out the window, watching the street life below. The decision she had to make was not a simple one. To return would mean facing Helena, reopening wounds, exposing herself to prejudice again. But not to return would mean abandoning Sophia when the girl needed her most. "What are you going to do?" asked Deborah, who had overheard part of the conversation. Paloma turned to her sister, her eyes determined. "I'm going back. Not for the money, not for the job. For Sophia and Mrs. Ashford. She'll make your life a living hell, maybe." Paloma smiled, a new strength growing inside her. "Or maybe it's time for some people to understand that dignity isn't a privilege of the rich. It's a right for everyone." The next morning, Paloma woke up early, put on her most presentable outfit, a navy blue skirt and a white blouse she saved for special occasions, and prepared to return to the Ashford mansion. Deborah watched her with concern as they had coffee. "Are you sure about this, Paloma? I don't want you to humiliate yourself for our sake." "I'm not humiliating myself," Paloma replied, fixing her hair in front of the small, cracked mirror in the living room. "I'm doing what I believe is right. Sophia needs me. And what if Mrs. Ashford treats you badly again?" Paloma smiled serenely. "Then I'll leave with my head held high. But first, I'll make sure Sophia understands that I didn't abandon her." When she arrived at the mansion gate, Jim's eyes widened. "Paloma, I didn't expect to see you so soon." The doorman opened the gate quickly. "The boss is waiting in the library." Crossing the immaculate gardens again brought a strange feeling to Paloma. Only 2 weeks had passed, but it felt like an eternity. The house was silent, as if holding its breath in anticipation of her return. Carmen greeted her at the back door with a tight hug. "Thank God you came. Little Sophia is so down. How is she?" "She won't leave her room. Barely touches her food. Dr. Evans diagnosed her with childhood depression." Carmen lowered her voice. "Mrs. Ashford is out. She went to the stables to see the horses. She'll be gone until the afternoon. Mr. Ashford took the opportunity to call you." Paloma nodded, grateful for the information. She went to the library, where she found Richard standing by the window, looking out at the gardens. Upon seeing her, his tired face lit up. "Paloma, you came." He stepped forward, extending his hand. "You don't know how much this means." "I came for Sophia," Paloma replied, maintaining her composure. "But I need to make a few things clear, sir." Richard gestured to an armchair. "Of course, let's talk." Paloma sat down, keeping her posture straight and her gaze steady. "I cannot accept the check you sent me. I am not selling my company or my services. I understand and respect your position. Although I wish I could help your sister with her studies, I appreciate the thought, but I prefer she achieves that on her own merit." Paloma paused. "As for returning to the house, I'm willing to visit Sophia today, to see how she is. If she wants me to keep coming, I can do so a few times a week, after my work." "You've already found another job?" Richard asked, surprised. "Not yet, but I will." The determination in her voice was clear. "And what if I offered you your job back? Not as a cleaning lady, but as Sophia's companion, a sort of tutor or friend." Paloma frowned. "And what does Mrs. Ashford think about that?" Richard looked away for a moment. "She hasn't agreed yet, but she will understand when she sees Sophia's improvement. I don't want to be a source of discord in your family." "Sir, the discord already exists, Paloma, and it's not because of you." Richard sighed deeply. "Helena and I have very different views on many things. This is just another symptom of bigger problems." Before Paloma could respond, the library door opened suddenly, and Sophia appeared, her eyes wide with surprise and joy. "Auntie Paloma." The girl ran, throwing herself into her arms, with such force she nearly knocked her out of the armchair. "You came back. I knew you hadn't abandoned me." Paloma hugged the child, feeling tears in her eyes. Sophia was thinner, with visible dark circles under her eyes, but her eyes were shining again. "Of course I didn't abandon you, sweetie. I just had to take care of a few things." Sophia pulled back a little, holding Paloma's face between her small hands. "Are you going to stay now, forever?" Paloma looked at Richard, who was watching the scene with barely concealed emotion. "We'll see, Sophia. For now, I came to visit you. I want to see your new books, hear your stories. I have so many things to tell you." Sophia pulled her hand, eager. "Come see my room. I made drawings for you every day." Richard nodded, giving silent permission. Paloma followed Sophia through the mansion's corridors, listening to her animated chatter. The change was astonishing. The sad, listless girl had vanished, replaced by the vibrant child from before. In the bedroom, as promised, dozens of drawings decorated the walls. They all depicted Paloma and Sophia together, at the beach, in the park, on an imaginary picnic. On each one was written Auntie Paloma and Sophia. "Mummy didn't like the drawings," Sophia confided, quietly, "but Daddy said I could leave them up." They spent the morning together, reading, drawing, and talking. Sophia told her about her lessons, about how much she missed Paloma, about the nightmares she'd been having. Paloma listened to everything attentively, offering comfort and companionship. Around noon, Richard appeared at the door. "Sophia, time for lunch. Paloma will be joining us today." The surprise on Paloma's face must have been obvious, because Richard added, "I insist. You're not an employee today. You're our guest." Lunch was served on the veranda, overlooking the gardens. The table was set for 3, with the usual elegance of the Ashford home. Paloma felt out of place, aware that she had never sat at the table with her employers before. Sophia monopolized the conversation, talking non-stop about all the plans she had for when Paloma came back to live with them. Richard didn't correct her, just watched his daughter with a smile that was a mixture of relief and concern. They were on dessert when the sound of an approaching car shattered the light atmosphere. Richard's face stiffened. "Helena's back early," he murmured, looking at his watch. "Sophia, why don't you take Paloma to see the fish in the garden pond? I need to talk to your mother first." Sophia nodded, pulling Paloma by the hand. "Come on, the koi fish are beautiful." They left through the side door of the veranda, just in time to see Helena's car parking at the main entrance. Paloma felt her heart race, but she maintained her composure for Sophia, who was skipping happily beside her. At the small, ornamental pond, surrounded by bamboo and exotic flowers, Sophia knelt at the edge, pointing to the colorful fish swimming gracefully. Paloma forced herself to focus on the girl's joy, pushing away the apprehension about the confrontation that was surely happening inside the house. In the mansion, Helena entered the living room, where Richard was waiting for her. "What is she doing here?" Helena asked bluntly, having seen Paloma and Sophia in the gardens from the window. "I invited her to visit Sophia," Richard replied calmly. "Our daughter was wasting away, Helena. In 2 hours with Paloma she already seems like a different child, and for that you had to invite her to have lunch with us. As if she were an equal." Richard's eyes narrowed. "And what is she, if not an equal? A human being, with the same rights and dignity as us." Helena laughed, a humorless sound. "Don't be naive, Richard. There are rules and boundaries that exist for a reason." "What reason, Helena?" "Your prejudice, your need to feel superior." The argument escalated quickly. From the garden, Paloma could hear fragments of the raised voices. Sophia seemed not to notice, absorbed in feeding the fish with breadcrumbs she had brought in her pocket. "I think I should go," Paloma said softly. "No." Sophia grabbed her arm. "You promised to stay." "And I will keep my promise, Sophia. but I have to go today. I'll come back another day, okay?" The disappointment on the girl's face was evident, but she nodded bravely. "Promise you'll be back tomorrow?" "I'll try," Paloma replied, avoiding making promises she might not be able to keep. As they looked for a way around the house to avoid the room where the couple was arguing, they were intercepted by Oswald, the butler. "Miss Rivers, Mr. Ashford asks that you wait in the library. He would like to speak with you before you leave." The butler's tone was formal, but his eyes conveyed sympathy. "Sophia, why don't you go with Oswald to get that book you wanted to show me?" Paloma suggested, trying to get the child away from the sounds of the argument. Reluctantly, Sophia agreed. Paloma went to the library, where she waited nervously, listening to the sound of the raised voices getting closer. The door burst open, and Helena entered, followed by Richard. The woman's face was red with contained anger, while her husband looked like a storm about to break. "So that's it," Helena said, staring coldly at Paloma. "You saved my daughter's life." Paloma blinked, surprised. She hadn't expected the conversation to start this way. "Richard told me about the blood." Helena crossed her arms. "Why didn't you tell me?" "It wasn't my place to say, ma'am," Paloma answered calmly. "Mr. Ashford asked for discretion, and I respected that. Convenient." The tone was acidic. "And what do you want now?" "A place in our family as a reward." "Helena!" Richard exclaimed, horrified. "I don't want any reward, ma'am," Paloma replied, maintaining her dignity. "I did what any kind-hearted person would do. As for Sophia, I simply responded to the affection she offered me. Affection that should be directed at her own mother, not her staff member." "A child's heart has room for many people," Paloma retorted, surprising herself with her boldness. "Sophia doesn't love you any less for loving me too." Helena recoiled as if she had been slapped. Richard looked at Paloma with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "I came because Sophia was suffering," Paloma continued. "I can leave right now and never come back, if that's what you wish. But know that it will harm your daughter." "Are you threatening me?" Helena hissed. "No, ma'am. I am stating a medical fact. Dr. Evans diagnosed her with childhood depression. Sophia needs emotional stability, people she trusts around her. If I am to step away, it needs to be gradual, not like a sudden abandonment." Richard intervened. "That's exactly what I've been trying to explain, Helena. We can't just cut Paloma out of Sophia's life. Our daughter has suffered enough." Helena looked from one to the other, realizing she was cornered. "And what do you suggest then? That we make her a nanny, invite her to live with us?" "For now, I'm just suggesting you allow regular visits," Richard replied. "We can revisit the issue when Sophia is more emotionally stable." "And you?" Helena turned to Paloma. "What do you get out of this?" "The satisfaction of seeing Sophia well." Paloma held the woman's gaze without hesitation. "I don't want money, or position, or favors. Only the respect that every human being deserves." Something in Paloma's direct gaze seemed to strike Helena. For an instant, the mask of coldness wavered, revealing an unexpected vulnerability. "3 times a week," she said finally. "You can visit Sophia 3 times a week for 2 hours. After lunch, when she has her piano lessons." "Helena," Richard began. It's what I can offer right now," she interrupted, raising a hand. "Take it or leave it." Paloma nodded slowly. "I accept, ma'am. Thank you." Helena left the library without looking back, leaving a heavy silence behind. Richard sighed deeply, collapsing into an armchair. "I apologize for her behavior," he said, rubbing his tired face. "You don't need to apologize. I understand her position, in a way." Richard looked at her with curiosity. "How can you be so understanding after how you've been treated?" Paloma reflected for a moment. We all have our walls, Mr. Ashford. Mrs. Ashford's are just more visible in the hallway, unbeknownst to them. Sophia was listening to the conversation, her heart racing with happiness. Auntie Paloma would be back 3 times a week. It was less than she wanted, but much better than nothing. The next morning, as Paloma was making coffee for Deborah before heading out for another day of job hunting, the phone rang. It was Oswald, with surprising news. Miss Rivers, Mr. Ashford asked me to inform you that a note about you appeared in the society column of the Crestwood Chronicle. About me. Paloma almost dropped the cup she was holding. What do you mean? A certain Marshall Rivers, a journalist, found out about the blood donation and wrote a piece suggesting an inappropriate relationship between you and Mr. Ashford. Paloma's blood ran cold. My God, that's absurd. There was never anything between us, we know that. But it seems someone from inside the house gave distorted information to the journalist. Oswald's voice was tense. Mr. Ashford suspects Jerome, the gardener, who was let go last month. And now? What happens now? Mr. Ashford has already contacted the lawyers to demand a retraction. But Mrs. Ashford is distraught. I think it would be best to postpone your visit today. After hanging up, Paloma sat down, stunned. As if all the problems she was facing weren't enough, now her reputation was being publicly questioned. How would this affect her job search? What would the neighbors think? Deborah, who had heard part of the conversation, placed a hand on her shoulder. What are you going to do, Paloma? Paloma looked at her sister, a growing determination replacing the initial shock. I'm going to face this with my head held high. I did nothing wrong, and I won't hide as if I did. What Paloma didn't know was that the sensationalist article was just the beginning of a gathering storm. In the highest circles of Crestwood society, the story of the cleaning lady who had bewitched the Ashford family was already circulating, distorted and exaggerated, fueling gossip and judgment. And, in the silent corridors of the mansion, Helena Ashford was already plotting to get rid of this intruder who threatened a perfect, controlled world for good. In the days that followed, Paloma felt the weight of stares wherever she went. The article in the Crestwood Chronicle, though small, had been enough to turn her life into a series of whispers and speculations. In the supermarket line, at the bus stop, even at the church she attended on Sundays, she noticed people pointing and commenting. That's her, the cleaning lady who's taken advantage of the Ashfords. They say she wants to take the mother's place. I heard the husband is in love with her. Deborah came home from school one afternoon with red eyes. I can't take it anymore, Paloma. A classmate brought the newspaper today, and everyone kept asking me if my sister was the rich man's mistress. Paloma hugged her sister, feeling a mixture of anger and helplessness. It will pass, Deb. The truth always comes out. And what if it doesn't? What if this lie sticks to us forever? The question hung in the air, and Paloma knew that in a small city like Crestwood, scandals involving prominent families like the Ashfords could drag on for generations. To complicate matters further, her visits to the mansion were temporarily suspended. Oswald called daily to inform her that the time was not yet right, and that Mrs. Ashford needed time to deal with the situation. Sophia, according to him, constantly asked for Paloma, but was kept under her mother's constant surveillance. On Wednesday, as she was returning from another failed job interview, veered a third to reject her after recognizing her name. Paloma was approached by a man in a cheap suit and a calculated smile. Miss Rivers, Marshall Rivers, from the Crestwood Chronicle. He extended a hand, which Paloma ignored. "I'd like to hear your side of the story. I'm preparing a cover story on you and the Ashfords." "There is no story," Paloma replied curtly, continuing to walk, "and you know it. You're destroying my reputation with lies." "Then tell me the truth," he insisted, following her. "Is it true your blood saved little Sophia? Is it true Mrs. Helena Ashford threw you out because of jealousy? The public deserves to know." Paloma stopped abruptly. "The public deserves respect, Mr. Rivers, and a press that doesn't invent scandals where none exist." She looked him directly in the eye. "I have nothing to declare, and if you continue to harass me, I will speak to the police." The journalist backed off, but his smile didn't fade. "You know you're just making it more interesting, don't you?" "Mystery sells papers, Miss Rivers." Paloma arrived home exhausted, physically and emotionally. She found Deborah studying at the small kitchen table, surrounded by books and notes. "Any news?" her sister asked, looking up. "Nothing good. The journalist approached me on the street." Paloma dropped her bag and collapsed into a chair. "And I was rejected from another interview. Because of the article? Probably. Nobody wants to hire the businessman's mistress." Paloma sighed deeply. "I don't know what to do, Deb. The severance money won't last forever. Why don't you accept Mr. Ashford's offer? If he really wants to hire you as Sophia's tutor ... and confirm the rumors." Paloma shook her head. "Besides, I don't even know if the offer is still on the table after all this." The phone rang, interrupting the conversation. Paloma answered, expecting another call from Oswald with excuses, but the voice on the other end surprised her. "Paloma? It's Richard Ashford." "Mr. Ashford? Did something happen to Sophia?" "Yes and no. She's had a high fever since yesterday. The doctors say it's just a viral infection, nothing related to her previous illness, but ... double quotes." He paused. "She won't stop calling for you." Finally gave in, and agreed that you should come see her, now, if you can. "I'll send the driver to pick you up in 15 minutes. Paloma hung up, her heart racing. "Sophia is sick," she explained to Deborah. "I'm going to the mansion now." "Are you sure? What about the rumors?" "It doesn't matter what they say. Sophia needs me." Half an hour later, Paloma entered the Ashwood mansion for the first time since the scandal. The atmosphere had changed. The staff, once warm, now looked at her with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Carmen greeted her with a quick hug. "The little one is in her room. Mrs. Ashford is there too. She hasn't left her side since the fever started." Paloma nodded, mentally preparing herself for the confrontation. She climbed the stairs with determined steps, knocking gently on Sophia's bedroom door before entering. The girl was in bed, her face flushed with fever, her red hair stuck to her damp forehead. Helena sat beside her, holding a book she didn't seem to be reading. When Sophia saw Paloma, her eyes lit up, and she tried to sit up. "Auntie Paloma, you came." "Of course I came, sweetie." Paloma approached the bed, aware of Helena's gaze on her. "I heard you weren't feeling well. I'm better now." Sophia smiled, reaching out to hold Paloma's hand. "Mummy is reading stories, but she doesn't know how to do the voices like you." An awkward silence followed. Helena stood up, her face a mask of composure. "I'll go get more water," she said simply, leaving the room. Alone with Sophia, Paloma sat on the edge of the bed. "How are you really feeling?" "My throat hurts, and sometimes it's hard to breathe." Sophia squeezed Paloma's hand. "Mummy said you couldn't come because you were traveling, but I knew that wasn't true." Sophia ... "I saw the newspaper in Daddy's study." The girl looked at her with a seriousness surprising for someone so young. "They're telling lies about you, aren't they?" Paloma nodded, unable to lie to those sincere eyes. "Yes, sweetie. Sometimes people make up stories when they don't know the truth. Why? Because, double quotes, Paloma searched for the right words. Because some people don't understand that friendships can exist between very different people. Sophia seemed to reflect deeply on this, like the princess and the peasant girl in the book we read. Something like that. Paloma smiled, admiring how a child's mind could simplify such complex issues. They spent the next hour reading stories, with Paloma doing all the different voices that Sophia loved so much. The girl gradually relaxed, the fever seeming to subside a little with the joy of their reunion. Helena did not return to the room. When Sophia finally fell asleep, Paloma arranged the blankets around her and left quietly, preparing to leave without any confrontation. In the hallway, however, she found Richard waiting for her. "Thank you for coming," he said, his face marked by exhaustion. "Is Sophia better?" "Yes, she managed to sleep. The fever seems to have gone down a bit. You have a gift with her." Richard gestured towards the staircase. "Can we talk before you go?" In the library, Richard poured himself a strong drink, offering water to Paloma, which she accepted. "The lawyers got the newspaper to publish a retraction," he said, sitting heavily in an armchair. "It will be out tomorrow. It won't undo the damage you've already done, but it's a start." "Thank you for that," Paloma replied. "It's been difficult, I can imagine." Richard looked at her sincerely. "I want you to know we've identified the source of the slander. Jerome, our former gardener, was selling fabricated stories to the journalist. He will be prosecuted." Paloma nodded, but the relief she felt was minimal. The damage was done. "My offer still stands," Richard continued. "I want to hire you officially as Sophia's tutor and companion, and the rumors, they would only get worse. We'll face that." Richard leaned forward. "Sophia needs you, Paloma. And to be honest, this house does too. Since you left, everything seems lifeless. And Mrs. Ashford?" Paloma couldn't help but ask. Richard sighed. "Helena is complicated. But she saw how Sophia improved just with your presence today. Deep down, she wants what's best for her daughter, even if she doesn't know how to show it." At that moment, the library door opened, and Helena entered. She looked worn out, lacking her usual impeccable posture. She looked directly at Paloma. "Sophia is asking for you. She woke up and wants you to finish the story." Paloma stood up, uncertain. "Of course. I'll go right now." "Wait." Helena held up a hand. "I need to say something first." Richard watched his wife with evident surprise. Helena rarely engaged in frank conversations, especially with someone she considered inferior. "What happened between us? Double quotes Helena began, the words coming out with difficulty. "I reacted poorly. Perhaps I was jealous." The admission caught Paloma off guard. "Ma'am, Sophia has always been distant with me, even before the illness. I never knew how to connect with her." Helena looked away, her vulnerability so out of character that she seemed like a different person. Seeing how she opened up to you, how she trusts you, was painful. "Mrs. Ashford, I never wanted to take your place," Paloma said gently. "Sophia loves you. You are her mother. I am just a friend who saved her life." Helena met her eyes again. "Richard told me everything about the blood donation. Why did you do it? Why did you care so much about a child you barely knew?" The question seemed genuine, without the usual traps. "Because it was the right thing to do," Paloma answered simply. "Because Sophia deserves every chance to live a full and happy life." Something seemed to break in Helena's face, a crack in the wall. she'd carefully built over the years. Her eyes welled up, and she turned away quickly, trying to hide her emotion. "Sophia is waiting," she said, her voice almost normal again. "You can stay as long as necessary. Tomorrow we can discuss more permanent arrangements." When Helena left, Richard looked at Paloma in astonishment. "In 15 years of marriage, I have never seen her admit she was wrong." "She loves Sophia," Paloma replied. "That love is greater than any pride." That night, Paloma stayed at the mansion late, watching over Sophia's sleep. The fever had completely subsided, and the girl was sleeping peacefully. In the next room, Helena had retired after a brief visit to check on her daughter. Around 11, as Paloma was preparing to leave, Richard met her in the hallway. "The driver will take you home," he said. "But first, there's something I need to tell you." In his study, he showed Paloma a pile of mail. "These are invitations to charity events, parties, and dinners, all cancelled in the last few weeks. The elite of Crestwood are socially isolating us because of the scandal." "I'm so sorry," Paloma murmured, guilt weighing on her chest. "Don't be. It's revealing to see who our true friends are." Richard smiled humorlessly. "The problem is, it's affecting the business. Several investors have pulled out, concerned about family instability, as they put it. What can I do to help?" Richard seemed to hesitate. Helena suggested that maybe you should step away again, just for a while, until the rumors die down. Paloma felt her heart sink. After everything, even after Helena's unexpected approach, she was still considered the problem, not the solution. "I understand," she said, trying to hide her hurt. "If it's for the best, I'll step away. It's not what I want," Richard hurried to say. "I told Helena that. But I need you to know all the pressures we're facing." At that moment, the office's phone rang. Richard answered with a frown. His expression quickly changed to concern. "When did it happen? Is she okay?" He paused, listening intently. "Yes, of course. You can transfer her to St. Jude's Hospital. I'll call Dr. Evans immediately." He hung up, his face pale. "What happened?" Paloma asked, alarmed. "It's your sister, Deborah. She collapsed and was taken to the municipal emergency room. It seems she has severe pneumonia." Paloma felt the world spin. "My God, I need to go there now." "The driver will take you, and don't worry about a thing. I've already given instructions to have her transferred to the best hospital in the city, with all costs covered." "I can't accept—" "You can, and you will," Richard interrupted firmly. "Consider it a loan, if you like. But there's no time for pride now. Your sister needs the best treatment." In the hours that followed, Paloma lived a nightmare. Deborah was indeed suffering from severe pneumonia, likely developed from a bad flu that the young woman had hidden so as not to worry her sister. At the private hospital, she was immediately taken to the ICU, where specialists took over her case. Paloma spent the night in the waiting room, alternating between desperate prayers and moments of pure terror. Around 5 in the morning, to her surprise, Helena Ashford appeared, bringing coffee and a warm coat. "Richard told me," she said, sitting down next to Paloma. "I'm so sorry about your sister." "Thank you," Paloma replied, too stunned to question her unexpected presence. They sat in silence for a few minutes, the distant hum of medical equipment filling the air. "You know," Helena began softly, "when Sophia first got sick, I spent many nights like this, alone, terrified, not knowing if my daughter would see the sunrise." Paloma looked at her, surprised by the confidence. "I learned the hard way that all the money in the world can't buy health," Helena continued, "nor peace of mind." "Deborah is all I have," Paloma murmured. I promised our mother I would take care of her, that I would make sure she achieved her dream of becoming a doctor. Helena nodded. Richard told me. She sounds like a remarkable young woman. She is. Paloma smiled faintly. Smart, determined, generous. She passed her medical college exams this year. I'm sure of it. If she's half the person you are, Helena said. Surprising Paloma. I have no doubt she'd be an excellent doctor. The compliment, so unexpected coming from Helena, left Paloma speechless. Before she could respond, the doctor appeared in the hallway, calling for her. Miss Rivers, your sister is stable now. The medication is working, and we've managed to drain some of the fluid from her lungs. She needs to stay in the hospital for a few days, maybe a week, but the worst is over. The relief was so intense that Paloma felt her legs weaken. Helena discreetly supported her by the arm, an almost imperceptible but deeply significant gesture. Can I see her? Paloma asked. For a few minutes. She's sedated, but she can hear you. In the ICU, Deborah looked small and fragile among the tubes and monitors. Paloma held her hand carefully, whispering words of comfort and promises that everything would be okay. When she left the room, she found Helena still waiting. I'm taking you home now, the woman said. You need to rest. We can take turns keeping vigil. Richard will come this afternoon, and I can come back tonight. Why? The question escaped before Paloma could stop it. Why are you doing this for us? Helena looked at her for a long moment, as if assessing how much of herself she was willing to reveal. Maybe because, after everything that's happened, I've realized I was wrong to judge you. Or maybe because, despite all our differences, we are more alike than I'd care to admit. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We both do anything for those we love. We both fiercely protect our family. We're not so different after all. In the end, Paloma agreed, seeing Helena in a new light. In the car, on the way to Paloma's apartment, Helena asked an unexpected question. If Deborah needed a transplant, would you donate an organ to her? Without hesitation, Paloma answered, surprised by the question. Helena nodded, as if confirming something to herself. That's what I thought. I would do the same for Sophia. She looked out the car window at the awakening city. You know, when Richard told me that your blood saved our daughter, I couldn't accept it. It seemed unfair that someone we barely knew had this power over us. It wasn't a matter of power. Mrs. Ashford, I understand that now. Helena turned to face her. I understand you, Paloma. And I wanted to apologize for everything. The days that followed marked the beginning of a quiet transformation in the lives of everyone involved. Deborah gradually recovered, surrounded by care at the private hospital. To Paloma's surprise, Helena visited daily, bringing medical books that the young woman devoured with enthusiasm. Richard, for his part, arranged for a tutor so that Deborah wouldn't fall behind in her studies for the college entrance exams. I don't know how to thank you for all of this, Paloma said to Richard, as they watched Deborah talking animatedly with Helena about surgical procedures, a topic that seemed to fascinate them both. There's nothing to thank us for, he replied simply. It's the least we can do for the sister of the person who saved our daughter. Sophia, now recovered from her fever, visited Deborah whenever possible, delighted by the idea of having an almost aunt who would one day be a doctor. The two formed a quick and genuine bond, united by the affection they felt for Paloma. The retraction, published in the newspaper, combined with a lawsuit filed by the Ashfords' lawyers against Jerome and the journalist Marshall, began to change public opinion. Gradually, the judgmental stares gave way to shy smiles when Paloma passed by. At church, the priest gave a sermon on judging not thy neighbor, which everyone understood to be a direct reference to the case. Discharged a week later, Helena surprised everyone with an invitation. It would be more prudent for you to stay at the mansion for a while. Your apartment is damp, and Deborah needs a controlled environment for her full recovery. We have plenty of guest rooms. Paloma hesitated. It's very kind, Mrs. Ashford, but we don't want to be a bother. It's no bother, Helena insisted. Sophia is thrilled with the idea, and ... double quotes. She paused, as if weighing her next words. It would be good for all of us. Thus, Paloma and Deborah temporarily moved into the Ashford mansion. What was supposed to be a stay of a few days extended into weeks, as their cohabitation smoothed the rough edges between them. Helena, once so rigid and distant, became increasingly receptive, especially with Deborah, whose interest in medicine seemed to awaken a previously dormant maternal side. One evening, as they all had dinner together, something that had become routine, Richard made an announcement. I received an offer from investors in Chicago. They want me to take over as president of the Agricultural Producers Association, which would mean frequent travel and, eventually, a move to the city. Move to Chicago. Helena seemed surprised. Leave Crestwood. It would be best for the business, Richard continued, and for Sophia too. There are better specialists there to monitor her case. But ... What about Auntie Paloma and Deborah? An uncomfortable silence followed. Richard cleared his throat. Well, that brings us to the second matter I wanted to discuss. Paloma, your dedication to Sophia, your selflessness, your integrity. All of this has made me think a lot these past few weeks. Paloma felt a chill run down her spine. Was he going to dismiss them politely now that they were moving? I've consulted with lawyers, done some research, ... all quotes. Richard glanced at Helena, who nodded slightly. And we would like to propose something that might sound strange at first, but which we believe is the best solution for everyone. What would that be, sir? Paloma asked cautiously. We would like to legally adopt you as our daughter, Richard said directly. You and, by extension, Deborah. The dining room fell into a stunned silence. Paloma looked from Richard to Helena, certain she had misheard. Adopt me. But ... I'm an adult. I'm 25. Adult adoption is perfectly legal, Richard explained. It's a simpler procedure than adopting a child, and it would ensure that you and Deborah have all the legal rights as members of our family. I would be ... your daughter. Paloma was still trying to process the idea. Legally, yes. Richard smiled, the first truly relaxed smile Paloma had seen on his face. In practice, it would be more like a younger sister to Helena and me, an aunt to Sophia. But why? The question came out almost as a whisper. It was Helena who answered, surprising everyone. Because you were already part of this family, Paloma. Not because of your blood that runs in Sophia's veins, but because of everything you are, for everything you have taught us. Sophia, who had been following the conversation with wide eyes, couldn't contain her excitement. Does that mean Auntie Paloma is going to be my real sister, and Deborah too? Are we all going to Chicago? If they accept, yes, Helena replied, looking at Paloma with expectation. Deborah, who had been silent until then, touched her sister's arm. What do you think, Paloma? Paloma felt caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The proposal was so unexpected, so beyond anything she could have imagined, that she didn't know how to react. I need to think, she said finally. This is a very important decision, of course, Richard agreed. Take all the time you need." That night, Paloma couldn't sleep. She walked through the mansion's garden, watching the stars, trying to organize her thoughts. The idea of being adopted by the Ashfords, of officially becoming part of that family, seemed like something out of a fairy tale. But it also brought complications that couldn't be ignored. What would society say? How would she be received in Chicago, in the elegant circles that Ashfords frequented? And what about her relationship with Sophia, who saw her as an alternative mother figure? Around midnight she found Helena sitting alone on the veranda, also contemplating the night. "Can't sleep?" Helena asked, gesturing to the chair beside her. Paloma sat down. "I'm trying to understand all of this. It's surreal." "For me too," Helena confessed. "If someone had told me 2 months ago that we would be having this conversation, that I would be considering adopting the house's cleaning lady, ... She laughed softly. "I would have found it absurd." "What changed?" Helena reflected for a moment. "I changed. Or maybe I'd just let the mask I'd been wearing for so long drop, and I'd forgotten who I was underneath it." She looked directly at Paloma. "You know, I grew up being taught that there were strict rules about how the world worked, about who belonged where. My mother was like that, my grandmother was like that. I never questioned it, and now I understand that those rules are arbitrary. That what really matters is character, integrity, the capacity to love and sacrifice for others." Helena smiled sadly. "All qualities that you have in abundance, and that I, with all my money and status, am still learning." "You have those qualities too," Paloma said gently. "I saw how you took care of Deborah in the hospital, how you loved Sophia, how you supported Richard even when you disagreed with him, perhaps. But it takes me a long time to show them." Helena paused. "About the proposal. I want you to know it was my idea." Paloma's eyes widened in surprise. "Yours?" "Yes. Richard was worried about how we would keep you and Sophia close after the move. I suggested the adoption." Helena looked at her own hands. "It's not just for Sophia, although she is an important part of it. It's because ... because I believe you deserve her family. A chance not to have to carry all the weight alone." "I'm scared," Paloma confessed. "Scared of not fitting in, of always being seen as the intruder, the stranger who doesn't really belong in that world." "There will be challenges," Helena agreed. "People who won't understand, who will judge. But we will face it together as a family. And you taught me that the most important thing is to hold your head high and move forward with dignity." The next morning, Paloma had made her decision. She met with Richard, Helena, Sophia, and Deborah in the library. "I accept the proposal," she said simply, "on one condition." "What is it?" Richard asked. "That Deborah receives the same opportunity, that she can study medicine, fulfill her dream, and that, when she graduates, she can use her knowledge to help people who, like us, wouldn't otherwise have access to good medical care." "That's not a condition," Richard replied, smiling. "That's a life plan that we will fully support." Helena nodded. "I've already spoken with the dean of the University of Chicago's medical school. Deborah will have a guaranteed spot as soon as she passes her entrance exams. As for the rest, we can discuss creating a foundation for medical care in underserved communities." Sophia, unable to contain her joy, ran to hug Paloma. "So you're going to be my real sister, and Deborah too." "It seems so, little one," Paloma replied, moved. The following months were a period of intense adjustment. The adoption papers were processed, and a simple ceremony at the courthouse made the new family structure official. The news spread quickly through Crestwood, generating mixed reactions. Some applauded the Ashfords' action as a gesture of nobility. Others criticized it, insinuating there were ulterior motives behind the decision. The Crestwood Chronicle, now under new editorial management after the lawsuit filed by the Ashfords, published a cover story with the headline, "The True Meaning of Family: How Blood United the Ashfords and the Rivers." The story moved many readers and helped change the public's perception of the case. Deborah, now officially Deborah Rivers Ashford, dedicated herself even more fervently to her studies. Her admission to the prestigious medical school was celebrated with an intimate dinner, where Helena surprised everyone by toasting, "To our family's newest doctor, who will one day save lives just as her sister saved Sophia's." The move to Chicago was gradual and carefully planned. The mansion in Crestwood would not be sold, but kept as a summer residence, where the family could reconnect with their roots. In the new apartment in Chicago, a luxurious duplex overlooking Lincoln Park, each family member had their own space. Sophia, now 9 years old and fully recovered, thanks to an experimental treatment developed by American specialists, insisted that her room be connected to Paloma's by an internal door. "So I can visit you whenever I want to hear stories," the girl explained. Richard took over as president of the Producers Association and thrived in the role. Helena, surprising everyone including herself, became involved in charitable work, using her social influence for causes related to children's health and education. But her greatest transformation was internal. The rigidity that had characterized her gave way to an almost maternal kindness towards Paloma and Deborah. 5 years passed. On a sunny October afternoon, the medical school auditorium was packed for the graduation ceremony. Deborah, now a 24-year-old doctor, had been chosen as the class valedictorian for her exemplary performance. In the front row, Richard, Helena, Sophia, and Paloma watched with pride. Sophia, at 13, had grown into a healthy and cheerful teenager, with no lasting effects from the disease that had nearly taken her life. Paloma, now 30, had completed her own degree in education and was running an educational project for children from underserved communities, funded by the Ashford Rivers Foundation, created by the family. When Deborah took the stage for her speech, the auditorium fell silent. "Family," she began, looking directly at the four in the front row, "is a word that can mean many things. For some, it's defined by blood and DNA. For others, by love and choice. My journey has taught me that a true family is formed by those who stand by our side in difficult times, who celebrate our achievements, who help us grow and become better human beings." She paused, looking at Paloma, whose dedication had made her dream possible, at Helena, who had become a mentor and a second mother, at Richard, whose support had never failed, at Soraya, whose fragile health had united them all in a common mission. 5 years ago, my sister Paloma donated blood to save the life of a child she barely knew. That selfless act transformed not only that girl's life, but all of ours. Her blood ran in Sophia's veins, creating a bond that transcended social barriers and prejudice. And today, we're all here, united not just by blood, but by something much stronger: the love we choose to give each other every single day. In the auditorium, many eyes grew misty. The story of the Ashford Rivers family had become well known in Chicago, inspiring debates about adoption, family, and the values that truly matter. "As a doctor," Deborah continued, "I vow to use my knowledge to save lives, regardless of who my patients are. Because I learned from my family that true healing comes not just from medicine, but from love, compassion, and the ability to see beyond appearances and labels. At the end of the speech, the audience rose in an emotional standing ovation. Helena, always so composed, let tears run freely as she applauded. Richard held Paloma's hand with paternal pride. Sophia, between them, smiled radiantly. Later, during the reception, a reporter from a major magazine approached the family. "Mrs. Ashford," he said to Helena, "many still question your decision to adopt a former employee as your daughter. What would you say to them?" Helena looked at Paloma, who was chatting animatedly with professors from the college, radiating the same serene dignity that had always characterized her. "I would say that some people come into our lives by chance and change our destiny forever. Paloma is not just my daughter by law, she is my family by choice. A choice I would make again without hesitation." Helena smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "She taught me that family is not defined by social conventions or rigid traditions, but by the ability to love, forgive, and grow together." That night, gathered in the apartment for an intimate celebration, Richard raised a glass in a toast. "To this extraordinary family we have built together, to the bonds that began with a blood donation and were strengthened by love and respect, and to Paloma." He looked fondly at the young woman who had changed their lives, who taught us the true meaning of nobility. Paloma, moved, looked at the people around her, her family, built not by blood or birth, but by choices, overcome challenges, and genuine love. From where she stood, she could see the illuminated city through the large windows, so different from the small housing complex where she had grown up. Her journey had been extraordinary, but the most important thing was not the material achievements or the new surname. It was the certainty that, regardless of the circumstances of one's birth or social conventions, what truly defines a person is their capacity to love, to sacrifice for others, to maintain dignity even in the most difficult moments. And that family, in the end, is who stays by your side, who loves you on the hard days and celebrates on the good ones. Sophia came closer, resting her head on her shoulder. "Auntie Paloma. Sister Paloma," she corrected herself, laughing. "Do you still remember that story you told me on the first day, about the girl who talked to the birds?" "Of course I remember," Paloma replied, smiling. "I dreamed about her last night. In the dream, she said that sometimes the birds are people who come into our lives to teach us how to fly." Paloma hugged the girl, now almost a teenager, whose blood carried a part of her own. "I think she's right. We all teach each other to fly, in different ways." Helena joined them, followed by Richard and Deborah. Together, they formed an unlikely picture: the former cleaning lady and the aristocrat, the businessman and the newly graduated doctor, the teenager who had united them all with her need for rare blood. A family defined not by conventional standards, but by the love they chose to give each other every day. In the simple kitchen of the luxurious apartment, the place where many of the family's most important conversations took place, they shared not only bread, but also dreams, hopes, and a certainty that true family ties transcend blood and social conventions. It was a new dawn, not just for them, but for everyone who knew their story and was inspired by it to rethink their own prejudices and limitations. The blood had saved a life, but it was love that had transformed them all. End of story, dear listeners. We hope the story of Paloma and Sophia has touched your hearts in a special way. To continue experiencing emotions like this, we have a complete playlist with other narratives that explore the diverse facets of love and family. Find it by clicking the link here. If this journey moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Every day, we bring unique stories that make us reflect on the connections that truly matter in life. Share in the comments which moment of this story touched your heart the most. Your opinion is very important to us.